everybody. Welcome to the second special episode of Otalku. It's been a while. I'm sorry about that.
The special episode dance. Woo!
She's having a field day. So, before we get to our topic, I'm David. I've created Nisekoi Bridge. I'm working on a project for Team 4 Star's Tenkaichi Iron Man Budokai Bridgeathon contest, and that's coming along well. And I'm also the editor for Otaku episodes on YouTube.
Yay.
Pass it on to Sachi.
Hey guys, I am Sachi. I'm a cosplayer and a vlogger here on YouTube, and I do things like cosplay tutorials, convention vlogs, daily life vlogs, all that type of stuff. And I am also a co-host over on the Otaku podcast, but I'm sure you already knew that.
Let's throw things over to Ben.
Hey, I'm Ben. I'm not big on the internet. I'm just a videographer. I watch anime sometimes. I join these guys every once in a while. So here I am. You can check my stuff out at bentleymedia.com if you wanna. That's what I got.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take that opportunity and plug my own site. You can also see what I do at dbsteelmedia.com. I'll throw that in the description as well. Sachi, do you have a website to recommend?
youtube.com/Sachi. And all of our Twitter handles are below ourselves, just down there. So if you want to tweet us and say hi, then you should.
Please do. So today we're going to be talking about a show from 2014. It was pretty popular when it started. It's from Studio Mappa, and it is their first animation, and it is called Zankyō No Terror, also known in English as Terror in Resonance.
Ooh.
So for those of you who have never heard of this show, you need to go and watch this, because it's kind of an interesting thrill ride.
Wait, is it not a popular show?
I'm
so touched.
It was
pretty
popular,
quite popular when it launched.
I was gonna say, did you make me watch an unpopular show?
No.
Literally, no one has ever heard of this. This is the most underground show.
It's the most niche thing
hip.
ever.
Yeah.
It's the most niche thing ever.
That's why we're doing a podcast about it.
Yeah. This is the Zankyō No Terror is the first project for Studio Mappa that they produced by themselves, as opposed to working in collaboration with Madhouse or any other studio for that matter. So Funimation licensed this show, and they've provided a description here on the back of the box that I was just holding up. And here's how they describe it. In an alternate version of the present, Tokyo has been decimated by a shocking terrorist attack, and the only hint to the identity of the culprit is a bizarre video uploaded to the internet. The police, baffled by this cryptic clue, are powerless to stop the paranoia spreading across the population. While the world searches for a criminal mastermind to blame for this tragedy, two mysterious children who shouldn't even exist, masterfully carry out their heinous plan. Cursed to walk this world with the names 9 and 12, the two combine to form Sphinx, a clandestine entity determined to wake the people from their slumber and pull the trigger on this world.
Whoever wrote that did a pretty good job.
Yeah,
I agree.
That makes it sound more exciting than it was. I'm not saying it wasn't exciting, but I mean, whoever did that, top-notch job, they should keep their job.
The summary sounds quite like cryptic, but once you actually watch the series, you look back and you're like, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's cryptic but not misleading.
Yeah.
Ben will have his
They did a good job.
Ben will have his explanation as to what he meant by that a little later on.
See, I'm cryptic and misleading as well.
Oh.
So, for this, we've talked about what the show's about. So, as we've described the plot, Sachi, how would you describe the plot for this show? In terms of what you normally watch, you're known for watching happy shows.
Yeah. I would say, based on what I have watched, this series really reminded me of Death Note, in the sense that you have a main character or two main characters, so in this case it would be 12 and 9, that are quite intense and they're very complex and they're like masterminds. On the outside they look like regular teenage school kids, but on the inside they've got these fantastic brains, and then so they decide to use those influences to like plot against Tokyo, like they want to destroy Japan. This really reminded me of Death Note because I really compared, I think it was 9 to Yagami Light. And again, where there's the same thing with like the whole idea of L and the whole idea with Sphinx, them being these like greater figures that the police are desperately trying to like find out and lock up.
Yeah.
So it really reminded me about that, yeah. And compared to like happy-go-lucky series that I'm used to watching, which are very like fluffy and you can see the whole plot from like the top, throughout the series it really like unfolds episode per episode.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's great. Ben, how would you describe the plot of this?
How would I describe the plot? I watched the last episode first by accident. It was like listed as like 11, I guess, which came up on the search option before it was like 1.
1, yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Ben.
So I was really confused as to like we can spoil it, right? It's a 11 episode series.
Full disclosure, we are spoiling
why
this.
like I'm like, man, they're starting this off really exciting, like, because with like a big nuke like going up a balloon, I'm like, wow, that's a cool start.
Yeah.
And everyone's like referring to stuff. It's like they all must have a cool backstory and stuff like that, and we're just starting. We're kicking it off running. I liked that. So if that had been the actual first episode, I would have been much more into the series.
Okay.
Also, I might have spoiled it for myself. To be fair, I feel like I like all of like the major plot points didn't feel as exciting because I knew exactly where it was going.
Yeah. I could see that being the big problem. Had you watched it start to finish, I think you may have enjoyed it a little bit more.
Yeah.
It was pretty depressing overall. It was.
Yeah.
It did not. This series, even if you look at, I want to say like the style of the animation, the entire series is very gray toned. There's not really any color in it except for at the end when like the nuke goes up and the whole sky lights up with the aurora. That's like the only color you really get. Other than like the explosions and stuff, so like you go into the series, like it's giving the idea that it's very hopeless. It's very like drab, and like there isn't really going to be any happiness in the series.
I can see that. It is. I found that with that the style of color they chose, it seemed that they were trying to push the fact that the story is set in this bland world that we already live in. So there's not really too much different, and then all of a sudden this stuff happens, and there's all of a sudden color everywhere, be it for the right or wrong reasons.
Man. Yeah.
There's an interest. I found that the plot was pretty gripping because I watched it proper, start to finish.
Yeah.
I'll admit that when I got this show on disc, I'd looked into it. I was sort of intrigued by its premise and thought, all right, if I really don't like it, then I'll be disappointed that I spent this much money on it. But watched the first episode, and I didn't get out of my chair for the next 5 hours, and I just marathoned the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I marathoned it all at once as well.
I think I split it between a couple days, but
yeah. Now, did you guys watch it subbed or dubbed?
I watched it dubbed because I feel normally I would do subbed, and in my opinion, in general, the subs are usually better than the dubbed voices. That's just a personal opinion, though. Like, I have nothing against dubs. I watched it in dub, and I found that it was easier to understand, or at least I didn't have to keep following along with subtitles. I feel like,
I don't like having to read off the screen.
Like, I don't mind it, but I just feel like when you have such a complex topic, sometimes it's easier to just have the ideas summarized in English, so they're like easier to digest.
I can get that. And this is also a show that has a lot going on screen.
Yeah.
So having to divert your eyes every 5 seconds to read the subtitles can be a little frustrating. That's why I watched it dubbed as well. I watched it subbed as well, but I found that having seen the show in English in the first place, watching it subbed wasn't as emotional, but at the same time, the same feeling was there, but it just wasn't as intense.
Yeah.
But then again, I knew what to expect at that point.
Yeah.
So.
I think it was really interesting that the series was basically about terrorism, but the fact is that 9 and 12 plan their attacks when no one's going to be in the place that they're attacking.
Yeah.
Like, was it the attack on the police station? So pretty much Sphinx uses their riddles to like send the police out on their little like chases and investigations.
Yeah.
So he did it. So he made he made the police think that the bomb was planted in like a certain area, so everyone literally like cleared out and went there, and he'd planted little like webcams and stuff inside the place so he could monitor to make sure everyone had left, and then he set off the bomb in the police station.
That was just a really small police station, right? Like,
it was a
really small local one.
But the first building as well, didn't he get the power outage? Remember that part?
That was like
got everyone to
museum
evacuate.
Yeah, but they got the power outage to the power outage in the first few episodes. I think was multi-purpose. A first purpose to get everybody out, but also to kill the security cameras so they wouldn't see him. So they wouldn't see him. And that was an interesting take.
I found it surprising that like no one else. They didn't really report on the fact that like there were 0 casualties to Sphinx terror attacks. They're like, oh man, these huge terrorists.
Yeah, they're just
like did I miss that?
In the first episode, they did. I think after the first attack, they mentioned that miraculously nobody was hurt, but there was extensive property damage.
Yeah.
So I think it's more that they're destroying a lot of private property, and public property in some instances, and.
I mean, you'd think that they would just get reported as like arsonists or something like that.
Arsonists and
terrorists,
but do arsonists normally use explosives? So that's really
they also did the announcements saying they were gonna like purposely do things, and they keep talking about like how we're gonna end Japan and like Tokyo will be like blanketed in darkness. So it's more also, like a threat, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Why did they do that, by the way? Like, I get, like, they're like, hey, we fried all of Japan's electronics to send a message, but, like, they're super smart dudes, right? They're savants.
Yeah,
they could have, I feel like they could have figured out a different way of doing it, like, talk to a journalist or something.
Go talk to a journalist.
But that's the thing, is that even in the real world, if you see journalism, regardless of what angle they're writing from, it's the fact that there is an angle in the first place that causes an issue. If you want your story to be as you tell it, you are yourself presenting it from an angle. You have a particular way you want to view the story, whether it be positive or negative.
They didn't exactly tell any stories either. They fried Japan, and then they like just died. Like the one got shot, and they just like had a heart attack or whatever, as they do, right? Because they're savants or whatever. I guess something to do with the experiments. It messes up their bodies, and like in their mid-20s they die.
Yeah,
I think that was really the problem. Is that technology really did that to them.
Well, so I think it was because they were so angry that they had been taken in as these experiments, and they've seen. You know how they said like, oh, the other kids were weak because they all died. So clearly I think 12, 9, and 5 were the only ones that really like survived that long. So they're just so angry. They wanted to get back and like destroy the technology that like ultimately like messed with them.
Oh, that's an interesting angle. I didn't get that.
So yeah, pretty much they had this facility, which I think was called the Athena Project. And they basically took a bunch of these kids, orphans, so they basically had no family that like cared about them, and conducted these experiments on them, and they all gained like these savant style like abilities. Or they did a test for all like orphans across the country, and they picked like the smartest ones, and they did these experiments on them. So it like really messed them up, and they were subjected to all these like trials and medicines and stuff. So they were so angry, and they decided like because such terrible things happen, like Japan shouldn't exist anymore. So then they came up with the whole idea of like destroying all the electronics.
Oh, they were actually just trying to get revenge on Japan?
Well, I could see them taking it as we never want anyone to ever have to go through this kind of suffering again.
So we're just
and if that means we have to shut down the country, so be it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they find out that Japan had been developing a nuclear bomb that was better than anything the Americans had ever come up with.
Yeah.
And so they used that to their advantage, because if Japan acknowledged it, then there would be absolute chaos globally.
Yeah.
Right.
So since World War II ended, Japan's official policy has been no nukes in Japanese territory ever. Mm-hmm. That being said, the White House a couple of months ago announced, there may have been some there, but they didn't have their cores.
Yeah.
So,
and also the fact that 9 and 12 were both 17 years old, and then 5 must have been a little bit older.
I believe.
I guess it's so hard to tell age of people in like.
I believe she was,
because I just assumed that she was. I know, like they said, the U.S. government took her and like trained her when she was younger.
Yeah. And she was part of the nuclear emergency support team.
So like
Yeah,
just since she was in the military, I just assumed that she was like older. So
Yeah.
she was kind of like she had high status.
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
I think so.
So and the Americans come in right at the end, right? And they shoot.
Yeah.
Is it 9 or 12? The one that looks younger. The
12, right?
12 gets shot, I think.
12's the happy one.
That was
Yes.
sad.
He's always the
I
happy
was not
one.
expecting him to get shot down, but he was just like standing there.
Yeah.
Like, get him. No, that
Yeah.
was sad.
Yeah.
I find it was
I had
interesting.
no
that
idea
they
what their
didn't
game
even...
plan was. They're like, no, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I found that was
clearly
so
we're
weird.
not gonna do it.
I found it was weird that even after they had caused this destruction to all of Japan's technology, that they didn't take them in to basically publicly learn why they did this, as opposed to anything else. They just
the Americans were trying to cover something up, right?
Well, the Americans and the Japanese were trying to cover something up. So.
And basically, was it Nine tells the detective, what was his name, Shibazaki, to basically like tell their story and expose the project. Can we touch on something that I really didn't understand?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5 is the woman that's like trying to track down 9 and 12. And then so they go on that like crazy car chase, and pretty much they try to capture 9, and then they get out of the car and everything's like exploding, and then she confesses her love for him.
Is that
was
it?
a little weird.
She was like, I'm gonna die so you
behind
can live, or something like that. And I'm like, I
premise...
went online and I like looked it up, and they were like, when 5 like confesses that she always wanted to beat him or like surpass him and never could, and like this entire time you've been trying to track him down and you've been like messing around with him, and it looked like you wanted to like kill him, and now you're
I kind of got the impression that like she felt they had unfinished business, and like she wanted to beat him at something, like like prove that she was better.
Yeah.
Like I understood that, but then she did, and then she killed herself.
Yeah.
To give him time somehow, but she could have just run off with him, right?
Yeah,
they would have been like all 3 of them would have like wrecked. They would have been OP, but like they didn't. She burned herself in a car for some reason.
Yeah, she was nuts.
I think
the premise with that.
Sorry.
I think the premise with that though is that when she was trying to capture him, he was already en route to the press conference that he was going to give.
Oh right.
Yeah.
About the whole thing, about how Sphinx had stolen a nuclear bomb and we're going to detonate it over Tokyo. And essentially, it was just I saw it as a last-ditch attempt. I agree with what you were saying, Ben, where she was sort of conveying that they had unfinished business, that she always used him as a goal because he was always one step ahead, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it was also the fact that if she didn't stop him, the whole thing would just blow up in the Americans' face, aside from just from the Japanese.
Yeah.
But then she didn't stop him, though, in the end.
No,
so she's like, it's like she messed him up, and then she's like, oh no, go ahead, but I'll kill myself.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
I think she was also dying, though, at that point. Like, remember, she kept having the headaches, so she knew she was going to die, and then she's like, I'm going to be dramatic about this. Boom.
They're all dying. They're all dying. Like,
we're all dying if you think about it.
Yeah, great. That's a throwaway.
David.
But anyway.
No, that's the whole mentality I think that they share with that.
Well, like,
they can do anything they want. There's nothing really to lose. They're going to die very shortly.
Yeah.
I feel like that takes away from the drama of it a bit, where it's like their lives don't really matter, so like you don't really care. But
yeah.
There was one scene that I thought like could have been done better, and it was the scene in the airport.
Yeah.
When I was watching that, you know how 5 is in the control room and she's telling the people to display certain coordinates on the screen so that when 9 and 12 are rushing through the airport, they realize, they're like, oh, this is a chessboard, like, oh, this must mean the entire airport is like a chessboard and we have to get to certain locations in order to find the bomb. Everyone in that airport was just kind of like, oh, why, well, where did the map go? Oh, like, and I don't know, I feel like they could have
nobody was
used people
paying
more.
attention.
Maybe it was just the fact that it would mean more animating for them to do, and everyone was just kind of standing there.
Yeah.
I was kind of confused by that entire scene. Like, how was that situation meant to work? Were they playing chess, or were they just directing him around? Like,
I think that was the intention.
Was it being more clever than I could understand, or did it fail in some way to kind of convey exactly what was happening?
I was
Really
confused.
Because like they showed a couple like shots of a chessboard and like what it was sort of represented, and they're like, oh, you know, checkmate, and you know, like I'm taking your king with my pawn and stuff like that.
I think with that in particular, I think they were trying to sort of show some sort of symbolism as to what level 5 was at, and try and demonstrate that even playing against somebody they know, that's not just going to be a cakewalk, because this person was just as good, if not a little less, if not better than they were. So to add to the dramatic effect that this person could outsmart them. I felt like they tried to be a bit too clever. Like, they lost me, definitely. Like, in that scene, I could not really figure out exactly how that game was going on, and that made it less dramatic for me.
Well, I think it was also the fact that they had captured Lisa, and they were using her as kind of like something bait almost. But if you've been in an airport before, you know how each of the gates has like it's E11, like D2. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like coordinates in a board. So I kind of got the idea, like, okay, they're using, but they didn't really use the gates as like a thing. Like, they divided the map up into coordinate. Like, originally I thought when she was like D1, I'm like, okay, so he's got to head to D1. Yeah. But then
this is at Haneda Airport, which is like the biggest airport in Japan.
And they're just like casually running around. And nobody's questioning
There is no way that it is that laid out grid. I seriously doubt that. It just doesn't make sense.
I don't care too much about that personally. Like, I've never been there. I bet most. Oh, I guess
none of us have been. Yeah. I don't think any of us have been to Haneda.
But I'll let that go. You know, personally, I'll let the layout of an airport go. I just didn't get the game.
Okay.
You know.
The whole she's trapped on an airplane. Like, how are we gonna get her out? I was like, realistically, that'd be an extremely difficult situation to get out of if she's trapped on an airplane with a bomb. I don't really think in reality you would be able to get out of that.
Probably
also, didn't the 3 police officers have to bum rush air control,
air traffic control,
traffic control? They bum rush. Like, there's like, no, we're gonna do this. Like,
they basically just said, get out of my way. We're doing this. Stop all flights from leaving, because they were gonna, aside from Lisa being on that plane, they were gonna drive that plane into the airport and detonate and kill a lot of people.
Yeah, I just thought it was, that was crazy, man.
And then they were gonna blame it on Sphinx because they could. So. In a way, it seems like Sphinx was just trying to protect their own heinous name by saving their friend and not killing a bunch of people.
The whole point of Sphinx was just to make a big noise as possible. Why would it really matter to them about killing people? You know, like, where did they pick up that? Like,
well, I think their point was, if you look at all their taxes, not to harm people. It was literally just to get media attention. So I think.
Couldn't they just? They could have just denounced it. They'd be like, hey, that wasn't us.
I think it would also be like, since Sphinx wasn't identified, like, how would they know it wasn't them? They could have just been like, oh, they're trying to throw us off. Okay, Sphinx is like actually deciding to kill people now.
I mean, they could make another video online.
That's the thing, is that they don't.
Like, hey,
after everyone dies, by the way, guys, like that.
That wasn't us. Someone's impersonating us. We got caught.
I think that would have drawn like double Sphinx. Like, whoa, that's another 12 episodes.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. And this was a short show. It was a pretty short show.
11.
I found that it was.
It didn't even do 12. I thought.
No, it just did 11. I thought it was kind of an interesting take, especially because of who it's coming from. The director was Shinichiro Watanabe, and he worked on Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
And
we talked. Sorry,
that was really cool. I thought it was an interesting take, because this guy is revered for being really creative with his stories. And, I think he used to work at Sunrise, and Sunrise has come up with Cowboy Bebop, Code Geass, all sorts of really, really cool shows that have some pretty intense storylines that are not based in manga. Or light novels, for that matter.
Yeah.
Ben, go ahead.
I was saying, can we talk about like the most interesting character, which was actually the detective? Like, I felt like his plotline was the most interesting one, because he kind of made sense.
Okay, the thing that stood out to me is, I'm like, how does everyone know so much Greek history? They were like, Oedipus, Oedipus, blah, 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 and let's like go into the thing about that. I'm like, okay, I remember reading about that, like, English or history class, like I kind of remember it, but he was like, oh, there's actually 2 or 3 variations of the story, and like in this variation this happened, and like, oh my god, everything makes sense now.
I just
Well, I think-
imagine them all like Googling like Oedipus like behind the scenes, between
Yeah.
scenes. They're like,
Yeah, so how can we string this together? I think that the interesting take with that was what was his name again? Main character, the
Detective.
detective was
Shibazaki.
Shibazaki. I think the interesting thing about his part was that he used to be part of the main investigations division. Then he screwed up an investigation and he was demoted. So basically, he was on his last chance in the first
Yeah.
place. So all he had to do was just sort of sit there in his office and not get in anybody's way. So he had all the time in the world, so he could just read on whatever he wanted. So he's basically this
So he probably just
overflowing
sat there and was
well
like,
of information,
Do you know what? I'm just gonna read about Oedipus today. Oh,
which
look,
is
it
the
came
most
in handy.
messed up, which is one
It's
of the
just
most
like
messed
reading
up
all of
topics to read
Wikipedia.
about.
According to
one of the
Wikipedia, there are 3 variations.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing is that the Oedipus story is one of the most messed up stories in Greek history.
Yeah.
There's a lot of messed up stories in Greek
Oh, there-
history.
there are, but
Everything's messed
I don't
up.
think- wanna
I
put
think
that claim
stories involving incest, or especially with their mother, that's pretty messed up.
Yep.
I feel like every story with Zeus is pretty messed up.
Yep.
Yes,
True.
it's a fair statement to make, I'd say.
I'm pretty sure he gets like a swan pregnant at one point.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
Isn't that one of those?
I'm not sure. I didn't read
but-
all of Oedipus' story.
Anyway.
I got too messed out over that one. All right, Sue.
So
another-
there was one implied part about the detective story that I didn't quite understand. So he goes and he's like figures out like he's the one who kind of like explains to the audience the whole like Project Athena thing, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Another Greek thing, right?
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of
But
symbolism in this one.
so he kind of goes to the guy who runs Project Athena and he says something cryptic that I'm not sure if I just missed later on, but he says like you don't know me, but like I definitely know you, or something like that. Is his
weird.
daughter one of the kids?
I don't think so.
I'm not
Because like
sh-
she
I'm
shows
not
up
sure.
a bunch of times. I feel like she's like number 6 or something.
I don't think
his.
his daughter was one of those. I think she's just sort of. the
I
one who
think
never
he's
gave up
just
on her.
kind of been monitoring the situation very closely, and when he says
Yeah.
that, he probably means like I've seen you a bunch.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
think his kid
Here we
was
go.
Reading
involved
too much
though.
into it.
Because
Shibazaki's-
no, like all the
Shibazaki's
children,
daughter.
all the children
was just-
are
yeah.
orphans, right? So it couldn't have been
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
No, like I'm wondering if he adopted her after.
From what I can see here, I remember from the story, he and his wife had divorced, and she was from that marriage in the first place. But I think the reason her role became more prevalent in the end of the series is because she's studying particle physics. So
How convenient.
like her understanding of this fit perfectly with the story's demand
Yeah.
for understanding how a nuke could go off and not kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
just kind of wondering like why he as like the head detective of the case was consulting his daughter on it when I feel like there should be someone employed. I get that like they want to kind of draw it into like exploring his like family connections and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I thought that I just thought they might be drawing that in just be like she came and like she's this super smart kid as well, right? And she's around their age, right?
Yeah.
Give or take, yeah.
About- they're
if
all in
she's-
like
if
high
she's in-
school.
Maybe
Yeah,
I was-
they're in high
I
school,
was
but
just,
she's in like
really
university,
hoping.
so
I know, like I mean,
she's a little older.
a
Mm-hmm.
little. But she could be like the previous generation of them or whatever. I don't know. I just really wanted it to be something cool. I just wanted there to be something more to the story
Yeah,
than there was. I felt it was a bit
Yeah.
it did seem a little rushed
Mm-hmm.
dry.
at the end there, but all things considered, there were a lot of. I think that there were a lot of things to like about the show. A couple of things to dislike as well. We've sort of highlighted that.
Mm-hmm.
That being said,
Would you recommend
Would-
the series?
yeah, exactly. Would
Oh,
you
is that
guys
what you were gonna
recommend
say?
this? Well, I was gonna say
That's
that,
what
but
I was gonna say.
thinking of a way.
Would you recommend
you
the
rec-
series?
Would you recommend Terror and Resonance to anybody? Would you recommend it to an anime fan first and foremost?
Yes. It's not when okay, in a sense it's violent, but it's not like gruesome going down the street and shooting people up type of violence. It's more like it's very complex, so you have to think a lot. I'm not a person that likes these dark series or like scary anime or horror animation, but I really like this series. So that's Sachi approval. Yeah.
Okay, Ben.
I wouldn't. I felt like it was kind of forgettable. I don't know. Like I hate, and I don't like saying bad things about you know, people's work and stuff like that, especially when people put so much time into it. It just wasn't for me, I guess. I'm just so used to like how exciting like Death Note was, right? And just how like intense and like, or like all the huge music and, you know, the great like mental battles. And I just felt like it seemed super easy for the main characters to do what they wanted, and like they didn't really hurt anyone, and you know, and their lives didn't really matter. I felt like it wasn't as intense as it could have been.
Yeah.
So
it is kind of hard to beat that whole "I'll take a potato chip and eat it." That being said, I do agree with you on that one. The Death Note had a little more like consequential elements to it. Terror in Resonance was a little more cause a big stir, but not hurt anybody in the process. In a way, I respected that, because if you take that into context of all like existing real world terrorist groups, if that's really what their aim is just sort of saying, this is our message, listen to us, and you know, like, come work out a solution, as opposed to we're just going to kill all your people or kill all these people just for the sake of it to get our message across. Like I think in an idealistic way, that's what I would hope that all terrorist groups would do, is that they would just not want to go out and hurt people, just want to make a statement. But unfortunately, that's just not the case.
I felt like they could have. I felt like maybe it was just that it was so short. They just needed more time to flesh out the story and all those characters and like kind of knit all of it together. But yeah, so I wouldn't personally recommend it. What would you, David?
I think I would recommend it to an anime fan for sure, but I also think I'd recommend it to someone who's new to anime, or who's never watched anime, because it's something that isn't in some fantastical world like Fairy Tail or One Piece. It's supposed to be set in an alternate version of our own world. So it's easier for people who, I think, who are not into anime to get into, because it's more realistic in its premise. Because something like this, despite how unrealistic the story is in terms of will it ever happen, there's a higher chance that something like this could happen, as opposed to a bunch of people having dragon magic, like that kind of thing. There's no real excessive themes like fan service or anything like that in this show, so it's a little more serious, and I found that was an element that I really appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
It's a good series.
so it's time to. I agree. I think it was a very good series. So to wrap up, Terror in Resonance is available for purchase now. You can watch it on Funimation for stream. I believe it's on other sites as well. For legal stream, I'd have to do the digging and to find out where those are. But you can stream it at Funimation.com. It is available online, multiple outlets, and yeah, so not getting paid for that either. But,
Funimation, please sponsor us.
That'd be amazing. That would be amazing. So yes, that was our discussion on Terror in Resonance. Thanks for joining us. Sachi, this is a couple days before you've left for AX, so I hope you have a great time.
Woo!
And look forward to seeing your vlogs then.
Check out all podcast episodes on otakupodcast.com.
And also check out our Facebook page. All of the links will be in the description box down there.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. Have yourselves a very good day.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.